Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the MMA Lockcast. I'm your host, Manpreet, a.k.a. MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOTN. This week, today, we're going over Bellator 257, nice and early on fight day, headlined by two light heavyweight tournament fights. Both of them going to be, five rounds. We got Phil Davis obviously rematching Victor Nemkov, or Vadim Nemkov, I should say. I'd say Victor because Victor's fighting earlier in the card. But Nemkov is going to be defending his title throughout his reign in that tournament. So obviously, first and foremost, he's going to be going up against Phil Davis here in a rematch. Very excited to break that one down for you guys. And then obviously in the co-main events, we got Corey Anderson taking on I'm not even going to try his first name. I feel like it's Dovledson Yagshi-Muradov. Should be a fun fight. Another good one that I'm looking to break down for you guys. The prelims are not so stoked for. Outside of a fight or two, for the most part, I don't really give a fuck about the prelims, so I'm just going to sift through it for you guys real quick and then get to the fights that I really, really want to talk about. So, yeah. I don't want to waste too much time because I got three streams today. So we're doing this one right now, and then at noon Eastern, as long as my timing isn't off like it was last week, but I'm pretty certain the weigh-ins actually kick off at noon Eastern. I just saw that the guy who got his finger ripped off in his CFFC fight a couple weeks ago, he got his bout result overturned. I'm assuming it's a no contest now. Like, how can you truly, fault a man for losing a fight if he lost his fucking finger, right? Very unfortunate for him there. I'm just actually confirming the weigh-in time. Yeah, noon Eastern is what MMA Junkie says. So noon Eastern, I'm going to be going live once again just to watch the weigh-ins with you guys, talk some shit. Obviously there's usually like an influx of fighters at first, and then after that, there's usually lulls in between the last couple making their way onto the scales. So I'll be going live from, like I said, noon Eastern, maybe even a couple minutes before, all the way up until the ending of the stare downs. So you guys get a nice little nice long stream there. And then obviously tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, the Ultimate Weigh-In Show, a little bit of an odds reunion. Going to be me, Clint from Die Hard MMA Podcast, Bleed MMA, and then obviously MMA Prediction Guru. So really looking forward to breaking it down with those guys, and then obviously having the band kind of back together, minus Cody. But Cody, I do have him booked for a future episode of that show. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to breaking it down with you guys. Let's see what the chat's saying real quick, and then I'll hop into the fight or into the fights here. Michael Mariano is saying, I just finished watching Tough 2 this season. Saw Rogers on. Yeah, that was the McGregor and Faber, I think it was. That was one of those weird ones where they had two coaches that weren't lined up to fight each other. They just wanted Connor, which is the funny part. So Shawnee Mac is in the chat. Again, doesn't matter if it's day, night, whatever the fuck. My guy Shawnee Mac is supporting at all times. Danny Mofo is saying the odds on Nemkov and Davis are way off, and I would agree. That's going to be the last fight I go over for you guys here. So we will check that out once I get a little bit deeper into the card. Biggs Omega is in the chat. What's going on, my brother? Ian Wind in the chat. Wongy77, I believe that's my man Saunders or Sonder. Good morning to you as well, my guy. Biggs Omega, pretty good card, to be honest. Yeah, I agree. MMA Trader, my guy MMA Trader, is on Mads Burnell and Carl Albrechtsen. Can't say I argue with him there. I can't wait to break it down for you guys here. Wonky77 is saying, just finished up Lucky Late Night, and I like that series. I'm going to say, yeah. That's my favorite one to do, let's be honest. Like, outside of breaking down fights, I'm enjoying doing that one where it's just talking some shit. You know what I mean? Get baked a little bit and just talk some shit. Go off the brain, go off the dome, as the kids say. So that's a fun one for sure. Ian Wind is saying, I hit Judges Dano TKO round one at plus 800 last week. Who is equivalent long shot spot for this week? That might be a better question for me to ask tomorrow during my fight day live stream, or even my weigh-in stream that I'm going to be doing in a couple hours here. Mr. Always 420 in the chats, and stay positive, test negative. Most importantly, Always 420. That's my guy right there. All right, let's get cracking into this card right now. Starting from the bottom, we got Pedro. I believe this is how the fights are scheduled. Let me just confirm. I can always bank on my guy. Here we go. So this is something interesting. Bellator just released the referee assignments for the card tonight. And you don't see that. You don't ever see that. Like the UFC never does that. I reached out to the fucking commission. I reached out to the Vegas commission to see if it's something they could do, and they said, nah, they can't. I don't understand why they can't, but it is what it is. Let me see if I can just pull this up for you guys on the screen. Not sure how well you guys can see that. Yeah, probably not a good look there. Let me try something. I just want to see if I can make this a full screen kind of thing. Yeah, no, it doesn't really work. Actually, yeah, it kind of does. All right, let me share the screen one more sec. There you go. That seems to work a little bit better. Not the most professional, not the the glitz and glamour there and bells and whistles that you guys are used to seeing from me, but I'll still throw it up there so at least we have a little bit of a visual here. But it's cool that Bellator is doing this, right? But again, they're on, if I'm not mistaken, they're on they're at a casino, right? So if I'm not mistaken, that might be like native land, so they're able to kind of just be their own commission or hire their own people. So maybe that's why they're able to release these assignments compared to the UFC, who's at the will of the Nevada State Athletic Commission more often than not. Is what it is. Ben Peak is thinking that Pedro Carvalho is a good dog spot. I think that is the first. Yep, that is the first fight of the night. All right, let's start off at the bottom of the card here. Like I said, so J Wilson 7-0 going up against Pedro Carvalho. This should be a fun fight, right? Pedro Carvalho obviously coming off his loss to Pitbull. That was in the featherweight tournament, I believe. I just want to confirm: has he fought since then? Because I feel like it's been a long time since that. Yeah, he was actually scheduled to fight. Oh, he was scheduled to fight Daniel Weichel tonight. Unfortunately, he pulls out. JJ Wilson comes in, and yeah, this should be a fun fight. This is a fight that I'm actually looking at the under 2.5, as I believe both guys bring the heat. Both guys have the possibility of finishes, and I think the longer this fight goes, probably favors Pedro Carvalho. But the shorter the fight is, obviously JJ Wilson will probably end up getting some sort of choke or finish, right? Pedro has some decent striking, long distance striking, but it doesn't seem like he holds the distance quite well, as we saw in the Patricio Pitbull fight. But can you really bang on the guy, right? Can you really bang on the guy for get knocked out by fucking Pedro Carvalho or by a Pitbull? Nah, you can't really bang on the guy too much. I think JJ Wilson is a talent. I think he has some upside. I think he has a lot of potential. My concern here though is what his gas tank looks like after round one, because more often than not he does start to slow down. But at 7-0, you know what I mean? He hasn't suffered defeat, so that should let you know all you need to know. With that said, I think that we see Pedro keep this fight on the feet. I think we see him kind of keep the distance, keep JJ on the outside, and then kind of just wear on JJ and possibly even finish him late here. So I'm liking Pedro Carvalho probably in the second or third round via TKO. But the one that I like the most is the under 2.5. It's roughly around that minus. What's the line right now? Oh, great. Obviously, my best fight picks isn't up. where is it? JJ. So JJ was minus 135, plus 115 for Pedro. Fight doesn't go to decision is minus 140. They don't have the over under up for some goddamn reason, but I'm pretty sure it's roughly around that minus 125, minus 130 range. That's what I like the most. I'm expecting some violence here. I'm expecting high pace, high action. I'm on the Pedro Carvalho side, but I'm more comfortable with the under 2.5. All right, next up we got Mads Bernal versus Saul Rogers. I'm super excited about this one, man. This is at the this is a fun one. This is two guys from the Euro scene that have kind of always just been around each other, and more often not, I believe they're scheduled a couple times to fight in Bellator, but it just kept falling apart. But now they're finally getting to do it tonight. I mean, I'm very excited for this fight. You're getting two solid grapplers here. You got to give the grappling advantage to Mads Bernal. You might have to give the slight wrestling advantage to Saul Rogers, but I don't think it's going to be by much. And for some reason, going into this fight, like I've always heard of Saul Rogers, and obviously he was on The Ultimate Fighter, and I'm not sure why that I had this perception that he was this crazy knockout artist. Like, I know he has some power in his hands. He's a decent striker, but that's not his forte. He's more of a grinder. But I always thought he was this crazy knockout artist. So it always tripping me out when I was like doing the tape. I'm like, why isn't he knocking anybody out? And then I'm looking at his record, and he only has one knockout record out of his 14, or one knockout out of his 14 wins. With that said, he could give Mads Bernal some trouble on the feet if Mads isn't really able to implement his style, which is move forward, stay in your face. Sometimes he does that weird Philly shell type of striking defense, but I like what we see from him, right? Nice, clean, crisp technique from the striking range. Maybe it looks like he's crowding his opponents a little bit too much. But that's how he gets his dubs, right? He crowds his opponents. He stays in front of them. He doesn't let them get anything off, really. And more often than not, he's getting the dub, right? Like, they have the same record, which is crazy here. But I feel like Mads Bernal is probably fighting the slightly better competition, and I think that he has the much better style here, right? I'm sure he can land takedowns, and obviously he's going to be a master on the ground, black belt in jiu-jitsu. If I'm not mistaken, Saul Rogers is only purple belt, but again, he has a ton of submission victories on his record. I believe it's 8, what his number is, but I'd be very surprised if he pulls off the submission here against Mads Bernal, who has been submitted twice before, like I said, but in my opinion, against much higher levels of competition. So yeah, I think Mads, unfortunately got released from the UFC. He's a kid that has only been progressing since that amount of time. Obviously gone undefeated since leaving the UFC, became the Cage Warriors champion. High level fighter, man. I really like what I see from Mads. Very durable as well. You can definitely see that he can take a shot, but it's his pace and his pressure that normally breaks his opponents, and that's exactly what I'm expecting him to do here against Saul. I get why he's slightly chalk here, deservedly so in my opinion. So yeah, I do like Mads Bernal to win this fight, probably by decision, by just continuously crowding Saul, not letting his game going, and just take him into deep waters, and then eventually drown him and get away with the decision victory here. See what the chat is saying before I move on. Rogue Stormer's in the chat. He's saying big time talent, Manpreet. Appreciate you stopping by, my guy. Jay has more power also. Yeah, he has some good power in his sound under 2.5. I agree with though. Yeah, that's probably my favorite spot. SKD saying got the stream on at the office. That's some dedication, my man. Action starts tonight. Let's get it. I'm right there too. Daniel seems to be a fan of that Pedro call. Again, more confident in the under 2.5. Wouldn't surprise me if JJ actually pulls it off. But I'll ultimately go with Pedro to win that fight. Nice back-to-back cards. Thank heaven for Bellator. Yeah, I need a little bit of a break, though. I mean, I need a breather so that I can just focus on UFC and try to tackle Bellator a little bit earlier, so I'm not doing fight day streams for them anymore. Biggs Omega, Saul has some great wins over Ryan Hall and probably wins that season, if not for injury or whatever. Yeah, I believe it was actually visa issues that caused him to not get over to the UFC or to Vegas to do that fight, and then ultimately got cut by the UFC. But yeah, that win over Hall was solid, but it was like a 2-round decision. Millie took place on the feet, stayed on top of him for about I'd say a minute and a half, and did some good work from on top without getting submitted. So yeah, that was impressive. But I think he's going to struggle here with Mads Burnell, who has a much better striking game and pressures and pushes the pace more than what Ryan Hall was bringing to the table. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We got Victor Nemkov versus King Carl Albrechtsen. This one I was having some trouble with. Ultimately, I'm going to go with the brother of the champion here. I'm going to go with Victor Nemkov. Now, both guys are solid wrestlers. Carl Albrechtsen obviously will be the younger guy here. I think that he definitely has some solid traits when it comes to the wrestling game. When that gets going, he has some good top pressure and he's able to land some big shots from on top. But I think that Victor, obviously being the much more experienced fighter here, is slightly more comfortable on the feet. I think both guys aren't the greatest on the feet. Let's be honest. They both do pack a little bit of a punch and have had success on the feet, but both guys have shown trouble with getting rocked and hurt in the striking realm. I think that for either guy to be successful here, they're going to have to be very successful with their grappling and their clinch heavy game, right? And I just lean Victor Nemkov ever so slightly. Again, it's not the most confident pick in the world here, but I do think that he can grind on Carl. Carl again seems like a guy that doesn't really deal with that type of pressure the best, even though that's kind of his game, which is just fucking smothering dudes and grapple fucking them. And even at the end of that fight that he had against the Brazilian cat, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I'll try to pull it up here just so I have it. But yeah, he was really getting hurt on the feet there, and that's when he really decided to start getting his grappling game going. It's not fuck, who is it? Cristiano Frolich. I think that's the guy that it was. Yeah, that was the guy. Brazilian guy. But yeah, I like a little bit more what I've been seeing from Nemkov. Obviously, the more illustrious career at this time, has fucking 38 fights compared to the 13 of Carl, who is a young up-and-comer. I could definitely spring the upset here, but I feel a little bit more comfortable with the Victor Nemkov side of things. So I'll go with Victor to win the fight via decision. Again, confidence level, not the greatest. Also, note the referees, Kevin McDonald and the Pedro Carvalho and JJ Wilson fight, Todd Anderson and the Saul Rogers and Mads Burnell fight, Mike Beltran. Like, the Bellator is not fucking around. They got some high level referees for sure. I wonder who we're going to see at the UFC event tomorrow. Probably Herb. Probably Jason Herzog. All right, let's keep the train moving along. This one I'm really excited for. We got Lance Gibson Jr. versus Marcus Surin. Now, Lance Gibson Jr., he's obviously been fighting some, I don't want to call them tomato cans, but obviously when you have a kid like Lance Gibson Jr., who's only 3-0 at this point in time, you got to build the kid up slowly. The interesting thing is he had his first amateur fight in 2012. We're talking about a guy that was born in 1995. Meaning he was only 17 when he got that fight, which is very weird. I don't know why I feel like that's underage, but to be fighting that early in your career was very weird for me. But apparently he was a college wrestler at the time, so he took that fight in the meantime, and then he had his next one in July of 2015. So roughly a 3-year layoff on the amateur scene. Goes out there, gets that win, and then turned pro in 2017. And since then has put together 3 straight wins. Now he's beaten guys that are 3-3, 11-7. And your second pro fight is very impressive, in my opinion. And then Dominic Jones last time around in Bellator, who was 2-2, absolutely just pummeled that dude. But this Marcus Surin guy, even though he's like, I believe he's like a month shy of his 40th birthday. Yeah, his birthday is May 27th, so just under a month shy, or sorry, just over a month shy of his 40th birthday. The guy has a decent background in terms of like he was a high level wrestler, if I'm not mistaken. He's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. The guy has some skill. And initially, this fight kind of reminded me of last weekend's Olivia Parker versus Kat Zingano, where you have a very skilled fighter in Kat Zingano going up against a fighter who's much older but has primarily been getting away, just being the physically larger and better fighter. But Marcus Surin has some talent to back up, the fact that he's 6-2. He started his pro MMA career when he was 30 years old. He mainly just trained jiu-jitsu. never really thought about competing in MMA, but now he just does it for the fuck of it. But this is a very tough fight for him that will probably make him reconsider whether he wants to continue to do this for the fuck of it or for the fun of it. You know what I mean? Lance Gibson, obviously the much bigger, not taller, obviously. Seren is slightly taller here, but just look at the physique on both of these two guys, right? You definitely got to feel like the strength is going to be in Gibson's corner here. Now I'm having trouble. Like I initially was looking at the under 2.5, which was roughly around -130, -140, thinking that Lance should go in there and absolutely smother and TKO this dude relatively quickly. But given the background that Seren has, maybe he can survive. Maybe he can prolong this fight. And that's my concern. Like we haven't seen much of Lance outside of round 1. We haven't seen anything. On his regional scene, there's actually a fight that's not listed on Tapology, but he did go, I believe, like those are 2 or 3 minute rounds, and he went to the third round and then eventually finished his dude. But like second round is another one that we see in his amateur fights. But the majority of his MMA or pro MMA career, it's not almost not even a full round worth of time inside the cage. What does it look like when he goes into rounds 2 and rounds 3 against a guy like this, right? Is this cardio going to be able to hold up? And if I don't have visual evidence of that, I can't, go balls deep on just an unknown. Like at that point, I'd feel much more comfortable parlaying him at minus, not even that. Like I wouldn't even feel that. Like it's just a little bit too many question marks regarding what he looks like after that 3 or 4 minute mark. By all accounts, he looks good. The kid's in shape. He looks super comfortable in there. He looks super confident and calm, and that will definitely help the longevity of your cardio throughout a 15-minute fight. But what kind of chaos is Marcus Seren going to bring to the cage here? I still think that Gibson goes out there and not grinds him out, probably finishes him in that first round, being the stronger guy. His back takes are beautiful. Obviously, he's going to be the much stronger guy, so I'm sure he'll be able to dictate where this fight goes. And I think that's ultimately going to allow him to pound Marcus Seren out via TKO in the spot. So I do like Lance. I think he'll win it in the first round. Marcus Seren's, I believe the only loss he has via finish was that ending of that second round against Devin Powell, where he went to sleep off of a mounted guillotine, but never been finished TKO or anything like that. Ryan Quinn beat him by decision, but he grapple fucked him, but he didn't really have too much. He didn't have the most comfortable control over Seren in those situations, which is why he wasn't really able to get his ground and pound or submission game going compared to Lance, who's going to, I believe, be a little bit more comfortable in those spots where he's grapple fucking him and making it a very tough night for Marcus. So I'm going with Lance here. I'll take him to win by first round KO, and I'm very excited what the kid has for the future, man. Like growing up around MMA, pretty much, right? His father, Lance Gibson Sr., who used to fight in the UFC, used to be the training or the one of the coaches of Rampage Jackson, and then obviously his stepmother, who's going to be competing later on this card. High level Julia Budd. She's been around the game for as long as she has too. So you got to believe that Lance is more than ready for this opportunity to fight a guy in Marcus Seren, who's probably the most. Actually, the guy that he fought in his second fight, who had 18 fights at the time. But I feel like Marcus Seren might be the most talented out of them. But with that said, the guy's almost 40 years old, so I don't think it's going to hold up for him. So I got Lance, first round TKO. Next up, Raymond Daniels, obviously the real deal. Raymond Daniels going up against Peter Stanonik. And if you guys remember, these guys actually fought, let me confirm the date here, but they did fight recently, and it unfortunately had to get stopped due to an inadvertent groin kick from Raymond Daniels to Peter. A minute into the second round, and that happened in September 11th to be exact. Very tragic day for Peter Stanonik that night, as he was just not able to continue after that brutal nut shot that he ate that night. I think that this is still Raymond's fight. I could see this one actually getting pushed into deeper rounds, though, right? Over 1.5 is -170. That's an intriguing spot. Now, both strikers, high-level strikers, both guys competed for glory. Raymond Daniels, obviously, he's like fucking old as shit now, but he can still go out there and give us like highlight reel knockouts as he has in his last several MMA fights and even his glory fights. But he's 40 years old, right? But I think that there's a reason they're giving him a guy like Pierce Stanonik or Stanonik, who's a solid striker of his own. I feel like this fight is primarily going to take place on the feet. That's exactly where I expect this fight to play out. And I think that Raymond Daniels is just going to be the slightly stricter guy, crisper guy, I should say, and a little bit more trustworthy in this spot. So even though Peter Stanonik, fuck, I keep fucking up his name, is like 8 years younger than him, I still think that we'll see Raymond Daniels go out there, put together a solid combination, put together some solid work, and outpoint Peter Stanonik. And I think he'll actually win this fight via decision rather than actually a finish. Like you see most of us Stanonik's losses are via submission, right? Or getting just grinded out. I'd be very surprised if we see that approach from Raymond Daniels here. So I am going to go with Daniels. I'm taking a win by decision, and I think that over 1.5 spot is not too shabby. All right, let's move on to the next one. I want to spend a little bit more time on the main card, as those are the fights that I'm much more looking forward to. So I'm just going to continue to breeze through some of these prelims here for you guys. DeMarcus Jackson going up against Gracik Bozinian. I believe DeMarcus Jackson is out of Sanford MMA. Been seeing him on the regular on Henry Hoops IG. Guy's putting in work. He's 11-4. Seems like a talented kid. Gracik, on the other hand, I believe his last fight was a loss to Mr. Austin Vanderford. And the funny thing is, like, when I'm putting together the tape index, I'll notice when I search a guy's name, whether they fought a high-level opponent in the past. So, like, just for example, the girl that just lost to fucking she just got knocked the fuck out last week against Diana Azvarakova or whatever the fuck her name is, Liana Jojua's training partner. When you search that girl's name, you see way more value of Loretta videos than you see of her, because she got knocked out by Loretta a couple fights ago as well. So even with Gracik, when I was searching up fights for Gracik, I'm seeing shit on Austin Vanderford because of how high level of an opponent, or how notable of a name Austin Vanderford is. But either way, he got grinded out in that fight against Vanderford. That's not a bad look. Obviously, Vanderford 8-0 at the time, 9-0 now. Very tough style for Gracik to have to deal with here. With DeMarcus, though, I think that his striking is going to look slightly better here. I think Gracik's path to victory is to just clinch up, push this up against the cage, try to wear it on DeMarcus, try to slow him down, try to take the pop off of his shots. But I think that DeMarcus is going to be a little bit too slick to get out of those positions, and he'll be able to maintain this fight at range. I apologize. My throat is fucking with me right now. All right. God damn. That kills. Yeah, I'm going to go with Jackson here. Either a TKO or a decision, just by outpointing Gracik. But the main thing here is that he needs to stay on his bicycle, stay away from the clinch game and the grappling of Gracik, and I think it should be smooth sailing for him. So I'm going to go DeMarcus Jackson via decision here. Next up, we got a heavyweight fight. We got the big boys stepping in the cage here. You got Steve Mowry against Sean Asher. Steve Mowry, I believe, is like 6'8", very, very tall guy, 8-0 at this point in time. He's 28, so he still has some time to grow within the sport. And once you watch him fight, you definitely understand why he needs that work. Still a little bit green, still a little bit slow in the striking exchanges, and he could definitely get nuked if somebody throws a bomb and lands it perfectly enough against him. And Sean Asher could absolutely do that, right? I'm not fully trustworthy of Stephen Mowry here at that minus 1,000 spot that he's at. I feel much more comfortable taking the under 1.5 because I don't think that this fight is going to go much longer than 3 or 4 minutes. Sean Asher obviously only fought one time in the last 6 years, and it seems like MMA has definitely taken a back seat to what he's been doing compared to whatever he's doing in his professional career outside of MMA. I do think that Mowry will end up getting the knockout here. Asher could definitely be a middleweight. Me and Cody touched on it a little bit last night, but he could definitely be a middleweight. But again, he's not completely committed to the MMA game. So how much is that truly going to have an effect on him here compared to Steve Mowry, who's just in the gym day in and day out with Henry Hooft? And I can definitely think it's going to show here against Sean Asher. So one thing I think that's going to be very important for Mowry, launch that knee up the middle, man. Like having the size advantage that you do have, that's probably one of your more devastating and sneaky strikes. If you can continue to bring that up the middle, he's definitely going to find the chin of Sean Asher and possibly flatline him. So instead of taking the minus 1,000, I'm taking the under 1.5. It's still a little bit chalky. Minus 250, minus 270, I believe the line was. Let me just see what it's at now in case it's been steamed some more. Minus 215, not too bad. It's actually gotten better. So if you're looking to parlay something, I'd rather parlay the under 1.5 there than Mowry. But I do like I do like Steve Mowry to win this fight. Paul Smith is saying need to lay off the devil's lettuce. No devil's lettuce today, at least not until the ending of the 9 p.m. stream. I'm just a little bit shaky as I just woke up maybe an hour ago, or sorry, an hour before I kicked the stream off. And did go to sleep at like 4 a.m. last night. So there might be a nap that's due after the weigh-in stream that I do at noon Eastern today. All right. So yeah, I got Steve Mowry there. Next up, we got Gregory Milliard versus Julius and Gleekis. This one, again, should be not too long of a fight. Gregory Milliard, I believe he's a cousin of Biggie Boy, Mr. Jairzinho Rosenstrike. That's probably his claim to fame on this card. Decent record at 12-6, but it doesn't seem like he's going up against the highest level of opponents. But when he does, he's more than end up losing. I think Julius and Gleekis has some solid potential, 205 or 9-1 solid record. But I think he's going to go out there and put on a little bit of a clinic against Gregory here, which is why Gleekis is in that minus 1,000 range, and I completely understand, right? I think he'll be able to mix some takedowns, truly start to wear on Milliard, and probably get him out of there in I'd say the second round via TKO. I'm expecting this fight to be action-packed for as long as it lasts. I think Gregory has more of a chance to win this fight the longer it stays on the feet and the striking ranges, but I think that Julius is going to look to nullify the risk that's coming his way, and he's going to look to implement some grappling, get this fight to the ground, and just start to wear on Gregory and then start to let his hands go, whether it's ground and pound or on the feet, but I'm expecting him to take home a TKO victory in the first or second round. All right, next up, and I think this is the prelim headliner. We got Julia the Jewel Budd going up against Diana Silva, and this is another one where you get Julia Budd at like minus 1,300, and the true challenge in her fight is figuring out whether she's going to finish this woman or if she's just going to grind out a 30-24, and I think this is more the latter than it is the former. The under 2.5 is like plus 160, and you completely understand that. And then when you watch the Diana Silva fights, you see that, she's a decent kickboxer. That's probably where she shines the most, but she does struggle in the grappling exchanges, but she does well enough to continuously move, retain guard at times, and just stay active enough that the referee doesn't really look to stop it. Julia Budd, on the other hand, I think, she's fine with going to a decision. She's fine with just grinding her fight. So no matter if she's a minus 1,300 favorite, right? Do I see her finishing Diana? I don't. Plus 160 is not too bad of a line to take a little bit of a risk if you think she even has a slight shot to do so. But I think that this is a spot that you could possibly just parlay Julia. I know it doesn't really add too much when you have a minus 1,000 favorite like this to add to a parlay, but if you want to get a little bit crazy with it, go for it. I think that she absolutely has Diana Silva covered pretty much everywhere here, but it has very good durability. I don't think that we'll see Silva land anything crazy and knock her out. I don't think that we'll see her throw up a submission to submit Julia. Again, I think Julia has her covered here. She's probably going to swarm her right off the bat, take her to the ground, nullify the kickboxing experience that Diana has, and then just grind on her from on top. Solid top control, good ground and pound. What's Julia Budd inside the distance? Let's just take a gander. Budd inside the distance. That's 170. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm going to take Budd by decision. I think this is a good spot for her to go out there and just grind out Diana Silva. Also, if you guys remember, Diana Silva was on the Brazilian Contender Series where she lost against 40-year-old Giselle Moreira. Should tell you all you need to know. She did good enough to survive that fight, but should tell you all you need to know. All right, next up, we are over to the main card now. We got Paul Daly against Saba Homasi. This fight should be fun, and it's crazy to me when I always see Paul Daly's record. You're talking about a guy that's 61 fights deep into his pro MMA career. Absolutely insane, the amount of fights this guy's had. And if I'm not mistaken, this might actually be his retirement fight. I believe that's the narrative that's going around out there, and this is a great fight for him to leave out on. A bit of a grudge match, and a lot of people are expecting this fight to end inside the distance. But I think we might see it slowed and dragged out, and see it to be a little bit more of a technical MMA fight rather than a firefight between two guys that seem to just have it out for each other. Saba Homasi, I believe, would be the first person to kind of go out there and try to drag this fight to the ground. If somebody was to initiate the grappling, I think it would be Saba. But I think that Paul is going to do a decent enough job in terms of keeping this fight on the feet and pretty much just piecing up Homasi here. Now, Homasi in his 3 fights in the UFC got knocked out every single time, albeit one of them against Al Hassan was probably a very very quick stoppage. His chin just did not hold up for him at all in the UFC. But he does seem to have some decent durability since then and outside of the UFC. And Paul Daly's striking or knockouts outside of the Sadawad fight, they haven't really been shown there. Like Eric Silva was a guy that's known to been quite chinny back in the day, and he wasn't really able to get him out of there. And that's kind of the fight that I'm seeing here is Paul just outworking and outstriking Saba on the feet for the majority of this fight. I think the over 2.5 is not too bad of a spot. I think that I think you're getting around plus 125, and I expect this fight to get dragged out. Again, there is the possibility that Sabah will look to slow this fight down with clinch, with takedowns, whatever it may be. But I think that at the end of the day, Paul will survive those spots. I think Paul will get back to his feet and nullify the clinch game of Sabah and then get his striking going. With that said, I'm not the most confident on it either, right? Like you're talking about a weathered Paul Daly, talking about retirement. Usually that's not the best thing to hear from a fighter, but that could also give him added motivation to go out there and try to end his MMA career on a high note. So I like Paul here. I'll take him to win by decision, but again, not the most confident of picks there. I got Freddie Freeball in the chat here saying, "Hey, Locke, I made it here. No need to worry, everybody. I'm here. I know I'm the most beloved subscriber. Just want you to all know I'm here." Yeah, he made it just at the end of the Lucky late night stream last night, a couple hours ago. So I appreciate that he's still hopping right back. JB is saying Abdul took that poor man's soul, 2 first-round KOs in a row. Yeah. The first one, again, I think it was a quick stoppage, which is why they made the rematch pretty much immediately. But the result didn't change. Abdul still goes out there, gets another knockout victory on his record. All right. Next up, we got. Yeah, a nap is definitely needed after the weigh-in stream. That's all I'm going to say. Maybe even before the weigh-in stream, depending on. Yeah, this stream's probably not going to go that much longer anyway. All right. Desiree Janez talking about. Sorry. I was going to say. Talk about a fight that I just do not give a fuck about, and I'm surprised at the reasoning as to why it's on the main card and not Julia Budd, former champion. But Desiree Janez versus Vito Artiega. We got Vito Artiega with decent striking, good movement, not the biggest in the division. She's close to a 500 record, which is fucking hilarious, but she's been fighting some decent opponents in her past. She's going up against Desiree Janez, who was pretty close or one judge's scorecard away from winning the Combate title last time around. She won a hard 5 rounds against her opponent, and she had a lot of success in that fight. There's a lot of good cases out there that you can make that she actually deserved to win that fight, and she probably wouldn't be over in Bellator right now had she had won that Combate title. So the girl is competitive. I think she has a good game on her. Specifically her clinch game, her ability to kind of overpower her opponents. I think that's what she's going to look to do here is just grab on to Vito Artiega, push her up against the cage and just slow this fight down. And I think she'll be successful in doing so. Like Vita almost reminds me of Justine Kish, fighting tomorrow. Like maybe Kish throws with a little bit more of a mean streak, but Vita doesn't really have any crazy pop or power on her shots, which leads me to believe that Janez is just going to be able to close distance without too much issue here, clinch up against her and just push her up against the cage, just overwhelm her and take home her decision victory. In terms of cardio, I do lean Janez, considering we saw her go a hard 25 minutes last time around compared to Vita, who, pretty much been fighting 3-rounders the entirety of her career. But I think that we'll see more from Janez the later that this fight goes on. So I'm going Janez pretty much to win this fight via control time. And I wouldn't blame you guys if you want to hit the skip on this fight, because it probably won't be that entertaining. So I'll go Desiree Janez via decision. All right, now the real fights start, right? Now the fights that I really give a fuck about start. We got Dovletsin Yagashimuradov versus Corey Anderson. First fight, or I should say this is the second fight that's going to go down in regards to the light heavyweight tournament that's going on. If you guys remember last week, Ryan Bader pummels Lyoto Machida in rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5. And, he advances into the next spot in this tournament. And now these two matchups coming up tonight should determine the next two guys that move on. But starting off with this first one, whenever you're talking about Corey Anderson fights, you're just like, is the guy's chin going to hold up, right? That's always the concern. It's almost like the Robert Whittaker thing for tomorrow. Is like, if their chin holds up, more than likely they look like a minus 300, minus 400 fighter. But there's always that concern that if they get clocked, that might be the one that puts them out. Corey Anderson, I'm a little bit more worried about than Robert Whittaker, of course, but I just think he has some solid skills. He has some great intangibles. His cardio, his pressure, his ability to just break opponents over the span of 15 or 25 minutes. I'm a fan of that, but it's just so hard for me to back him at minus 185, minus 200, considering his durability issues. And Dovletsin has some good power in his hands, right? My issue with Dovletsin is that he backs up a little bit too much. Like he allows his opponent kind of dictate the pace unless he gets his wrestling game going. But I'm not sure how much success he's going to have against Corey in the grappling exchanges. I think Corey's going to be the bigger, stronger fighter. I think he'll give him a lot of issues in those situations. And I actually do lean Corey Anderson here. The other spot that I do like in this fight, though, is the under 4.5. I think both guys have a high probability of finishing this fight. More so Yagashimuradov, who could obviously clean the clock of Corey Anderson and put him out. But even Corey, like he might be able to take the Melvin Manhoef route here, which is just continuous takedowns, continuous pressure, try to break this guy, and then eventually finish him in the third, fourth, or even fifth round. I think that like this fight and the next fight, there are solid cases for round props here that you could probably capitalize on. And I'm going to be taking a little bit of a sprinkle for both Corey Anderson and Phil Davis. I'll talk about Phil Davis very shortly, but for that round 3, 4, or 5 finish. I'm taking Corey probably 4th round TKO. I think his power and pressure and just constant staying in your face, crowding you, taking you down, pushing you up against the cage, whatever the fuck it is, he's going to stay in his face. He's going to make it a long night for Yagashi. And I think that eventually Yagashi will start to slow down and we see Corey Anderson going out there and get the TKO finish. So I'll go Corey Anderson, but you're never going to catch me playing that minus 185 on him, considering how questionable his chin. And so I'd rather take Corey Anderson inside the distance, as I believe that's something that's going to that should transpire. And I'm going to get even more specific with it and sprinkle that around, probably round 4 and round 5, maybe round 3. Yagashi should be able to survive, but after that, I think that Corey truly starts to take over. All right, last fight, we got Phil Davis against Vadim Nemkov. Super excited for this one. This one is a rematch of a fight that took place. Let me just confirm the exact date of it, because there's a couple fights ago for both guys now. Phil Davis and Vadim Nemkov initially fought in November of 2018. So we're talking about just about a 2.5 year time difference since the last time they fought. In that span of time, Phil Davis has put together 3 straight wins: Liam McGarry, Carl Edbrechson, and Lyoto Machida. Whereas Vadim Nemkov on the other side goes out there, beats Rafael Carvalho, and then finishes Ryan Bader for the light heavyweight title. So now he is the champion coming into this fight. So a different stakes on the line this time around. And not to mention, it's actually going to be a 5-rounder, which I think very much fits Phil Davis's side here more so than it does Vadim. Now, Vadim's never been 4 or 5 rounds in his past. We've actually seen him quit on the stool after a 10-minute round in Risen. Not the greatest look. And then even with Phil Davis, he's gone, he's been scheduled for 5 rounds, I think, at least 3 times. This will probably be his 4th time here. But I think he has the better game over 5 rounds, right? Vadim seemed to start to slow down in that 3rd round, which is why the momentum was starting to swing to Phil Davis's side. Phil was able to complete takedowns much easier in that fight, in that round, and really land some good shots from on top, and definitely stole that round in terms of the judges. But it ended up coming down to round 1, which seemed like a complete toss-up. But you could ever so slightly lean the Vadim Nemkov kind of way. So this could be another fight that looks good from the live betting perspective, that if you're watching this fight and you see Phil Davis down a round or 2 going into round 3, that Phil Davis should more than likely start to turn it on in that round and start to take over. Just like I said in the Corey Anderson breakdown, this could potentially be a possible round a round betting spot where you can probably get some good money on Phil Davis if you take him to win in round 4 or round 5, as I don't think that Vadim's cardio will be able to hold up the longer this fight goes on. Phil Davis has shown he can go a solid 5 rounds with a lot of opponents, and even in his striking stance, right? Like, more often than not, he's a wrestler, but he's gotten so comfortable in his striking that he can go out there and put on a solid output and volume on you to really catch up to you. And then I believe that he'll look to take the fight to the ground a little bit more often the later this fight goes, and that's where I see him being successful. So I do like Phil Davis to win this fight and spring the upset. Kind of surprised at the auto love coming in on Vadim, and that was kind of me earlier in the when this fight was initially announced. I'm like, oh, Vadim's probably going to win, right? Like, he has a win over Phil already. He knocked out Ryan Bader. But the more you look into it, the deeper the fight goes. I think it definitely favors Phil. And again, Phil's never been finished in 5 pro losses. I think he has 3 split decision losses and then 2 unanimous decision losses. But I think over 5 rounds, we're going to see Phil Davis thrive here. And that's why I'm taking him to be a solid underdog spot. I think he's... I think he's a really good spot, plus 170. And again, take that round betting thing into consideration, and you might be able to hit some good money on some round props. I think round 4 was like plus 2,100. Let me pull it up right here. Davis to win in round 4 plus 2,500. Davis to win in round 5 plus 2,800. So yeah, you bet your boy is going to be sprinkling that a little bit. So I do like me some Phil Davis here. Hugh is saying... So Phil Davis is locked the night dog of the night? I don't know. There are some good plus money spots I like on this card, and I've already let the Patreon members know, so I apologize, but I got to be fair to my guys who are paying the $5 a month to be on the Patreon. But yeah, Phil Davis is one of my more favorite underdogs on the card tonight. A. Loomis bet on Phil. I don't blame you, my man. A. Loomis almost got back. Yeah, I'm not talking about Paul and fucking Askren. Fuck that fight. The Wise Little Goat is asking most confident picks, Bellator picks. I'm assuming you want to parlay here. I'd say a solid parlay would probably be the under 1.5 and the Mowry and Asher fight. And Gleekis is a good spot. Julia Budd, Lance Gibson Jr. You could even take the under 2.5 in that fight at a better line. Mads Burnell, I think, is a great spot. Yeah, those are my safest spots of the card. Again, it's very chalky because it is Bellator, but those are the spots that I believe are safest. DXJC Phil Davis finally going to fulfill that potential almost a decade late and in Bellator. Yeah, he was the Bellator light heavyweight champ already, right? It's not like he didn't win the strap once he came over here. But yeah, I think Phil Davis wins the title once again. JB saying under 4.5 and the Anderson fight is plus 100. I like that. I like it. All right, that's a wrap on the stream. I'm not going to spend too much longer here. I'm going to go and stretch out a little bit, maybe go for a little bit of walk, try to wake my ass up before the live weigh-in start. So if you guys want to check back in here at 12 o'clock at noon, that's just about an hour from now, I'll be doing a live chat for the weigh-ins. Watch the weigh-ins with you guys. Talk some shit. No real structure other than just watching half-naked dudes step on a scale and see whether they make weight or not. And I'm hoping that it should be some fun. I had some fun last time around, even though it started a little bit later than normal. But yeah, I hope to catch you guys at noon EST. Appreciate you guys as always. And yeah, if you guys haven't, hit the like. Is that the least you guys can do? All right, I'll see you guys very shortly.